Hey, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show. Thanks for tuning in to the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM. If you're interested in sponsoring my show, you can send me an email to the Mike Wagner Show at gmail.com, or you could also donate to the podcast. Just go to the donate listen site, and you can also donate whatever you like. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. For those who are interested, Anchor can give you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. We've got creation tools, allows you to record and edit podcasts so it sounds great, and they'll distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple, Google, many more. And you can make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. So download the Anchor app for free or go to Anchor FM to get started.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show brings you famous celebrities and amazing people from all over the world. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And watch the interview on YouTube. So sit back and relax and enjoy the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. Become a follower. Also, download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM and Radio Public. And watch the interview on YouTube on The Mike Wagner Show. Make sure you subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel and take The Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with a wonderful gentleman who's a trucker who's been all over the country. He's the author of Rough Way to the Highway, published by Elm Hill. He's a trucker turned author whose book is getting a lot of attention. Talks about trucker turned pastor turned trucker after his wife murder. And he'll talk more about that. And, of course, the book is doing very well. And of course, he sounds like you're at a convention or at a restaurant here. But live and ladies and gentlemen, from wonderful San Antonio, deep in the heart of Texas, the ultimate cowboy and trucker, Kelly McCoy. Kelly, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Howdy, Mike. I appreciate you having me, sir.
Well, that's not a problem. So you're the author of Rough Way to the Highway, published by Elm Hill. You've been a trucker for quite some time, and you somehow semi-retired. You became an author whose book is getting a lot of attention. Talks about trucker turned pastor turned trucker after his wife murder. And, of course, you have some interesting stories to tell. And before we get into all that, tell us how you got started.
How I got started in trucking, or as an author, or both?
Well, first of all, let's just start. How you became a trucker, then you worked your way to being an author.
Well, Mike, I come from a pretty rough background. I was raised in Dallas, Texas, and I just recently wrote the first line to my autobiography accidentally while I was doing a written interview. And, I said I moved to Dallas when I was 2 years old because that's where the booze was. And that's really true, because back in those days, I lived I was born in East Texas, and a town called Tyler, about 80 miles east of Dallas. And all that area was dry at the time. You couldn't buy liquor anywhere close. So my dad, who was drunk all the time, used to have to drive 80 miles to Dallas to get the booze. And so we ended up moving to Dallas when I was 2 years old. So that's why I say I moved when I was 2 years old to Dallas, because that's where the booze was. So I come from a pretty rough background, as you can imagine. And so when I became old enough, my way out, and it was, way out of all that, and also just to see the world, I became a truck driver. I had no any background in trucking or anything like that. But it was just a poor boy's way of seeing the world. So as soon as I was, old enough, 21 years old, I hit the road, and I'll let you and your listeners do the math to figure out how old I am. But that was 1974. when I started driving a truck.
1974, amazing. And what did you have to do back then to get a license compared to today?
Well, it's funny because back then, at least in Texas, what you did is you got your license first, and then you learned to drive a truck. I actually got my, it's called a commercial driver's license, in a one-ton truck. And I actually have a friend of mine who's about my age. He got his license in a station wagon.
Oh,
so that's all you had to do. It just had to be something that was used for commercial purposes. And then you can hop in a truck, perfectly legal, and drive it across the country. But I did go to a truck driving school, and all we did is just run around an old abandoned airfield, learn to shift, and then once we learned to shift, myself, another student, went out and hit the streets, and it's perfectly legal. And then we kind of learned how to drive out there on the streets. That's the way it was done back those days.
That was amazing too. And who did you work for back then, or did you end up running your own trucking company?
No, I actually worked for a trucking company called Frozen Food Express, FFE. They're actually still around out of Dallas, Texas. And I visited them not too long ago. It was the same location they were at back then. And so I drove with them. I drove for an owner-operator for a while. And, I drove for them 2.5 years or so. And in between that time and now, I've done pretty much everything under the sun that you can imagine, as it relates to trucking.
Mm-hmm. So. And of course, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have? What do you consider the most difficult commute that you ever had, and how did you manage to handle it?
I have so many stories, Mike. The first one that comes to mind was when I had 2 days experience driving a truck. I was working for this owner operator that I mentioned, and I was 21 years old, as I said. And we went to San Francisco, and I still can't believe to this day that he did this. But he had family in just north of San Francisco in Marin County, and so he cut me loose by myself to just stay there in San Francisco and deliver on Monday. So here I am by myself, and I proceeded to get totally hopelessly lost in San Francisco. And I know most of your audience probably at least seen movies of San Francisco, and you know what it's like there. All this chaos and hills and everything else. And I got hopelessly lost and finally found the place hours later. It was in this little courtyard down an alleyway. And I went in there. It was probably the most difficult backing situation I've ever faced in my life. I was, 2 days into trucking. Had to jackknife my truck to get in there. And, the guy at the dock, they were all laughing and all this stuff. And they finally got it done, and got out there and got back on the streets. By this time, it's rush hour traffic. And then so I went headed towards the Golden Gate Bridge to go to Marin County. I ran out of fuel right in the middle of the Golden Gate Bridge. This is 2 days into trucking, so I could take up your whole program telling you stories like that. But it gets interesting out there.
I was going to say, I love hearing more about your trucking stories as well, too, and we'll also include that in your book as well, too, about Rough Way to the Highway. We'll get to that in just a minute. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page and like and share, Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, as well as Radio Public. And also subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on YouTube and check out our interview and take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with author and trucker turned author, should say, the author of Rough Way to the Highway, published by Elm Hill, Kelly McCoy. He's here with us, and it kind of sounds like a diner way too, but a lot of truckers just love hitting the diners and everything else. And wrote a book about pastor turned long haul trucker, and of course Macks struggles with grief and perceived failures as minister while confronted with a mysterious hitchhiker, smugglers, and a determined killer. And perhaps you can just tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, Mike McClain, he was, I built a lot of my own history into the story, and I didn't necessarily intend to do it, but I realized it afterwards, looking back. But Mac was born up, he's the protagonist. He was born up in Pampa, Texas, which is a little town up near Amarillo up in the Texas Panhandle. And I don't have a history in Pampa, but it's just a kind of it has it all there. They got oil, they got cattle, and they got a prison, and it's kind of a bleak landscape up there, and it's kind of a place where you could understand somebody wanting to be away from. And his father was abusive drunk, had a pretty rough background. He had an uncle that would come up there and pick him up in his truck. His uncle drove a truck, come up from Dallas and pick him up. And so they'd hit the road, and so Mac developed this unrealistic sentimental view of trucking. And so, but he later, when he grew up, he became a pastor, and also his uncle's assistant. And so he moved to Kerrville, Texas, up in the Texas Hill Country, lived a kind of normal pastor's life until his wife is murdered, probably in his 50s, and so he goes back to the only thing he knows how to do, and that's drive a truck. So he sells everything he has, buys a new Peterbilt, and as fate would have it, he ends up going back to Pampa with his first load. All this is backstory, Mike. I tell you all of that without spoiling the story. The novel actually opens up when he picks up a mysterious hitchhiker right outside of Pampa near the Jordan State Prison, and then the trouble, as you can imagine, starts there.
Mm-hmm. And of course, too, with the hitchhiker as well, too, it's like, in any ways, if you picture hitchhikers, what has been more of their personalities, their needs, and how have you handled them as well, too?
The hitchhiker?
Hitchhikers,
well,
yes.
Well, the hitchhiker, it was different, back in the day, when I was younger. I spent a lot of time hitchhiking myself, and then we didn't think a lot about picking up hitchhikers. But now, you just don't pick up hitchhikers these days. And even in the novel, to make it more believable, not to make it more believable, but he was nudged by God. He's a pastor. He was nudged by God to pick up this hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker reminded him of his, abusive, drunken father, back in his younger days, and that's why he was moved to pick him up. And this hitchhiker was, trouble from the beginning, and he's a mysterious character all the way through the book, and a thorn in Mac's side. And then all the way towards the end, and then I can't give you the ending, of course, but it's that way throughout the novel as far as that character goes.
Mm-hmm. And of course, too, they also mentioned about being in ministry and everything else, too. And, is it common for truckers to become pastors, or pastors becoming truckers as well, too? And it sounds like, being in ministry and also in trucking have come in hand as of late.
It's a lot more common than you would think. I mean, there's a lot of people out there actually driving their trucks and ministries, and they have mobile ministries. And matter of fact, I'm sitting here in Dallas right now. My wife and I, Miss Emily, we're in a conference room here at the Great American Trucking Show in Dallas, and we met a gentleman who has a mobile ministry, and there's actually many of them out there. And it's actually a worldwide thing. I have a friend in Australia, and his dream is to set up an American-style ministry down there. It's very common.
It does sound common as well, too. And, of course, you being an author yourself, and what are some of your next projects you have coming up, or what are some of the other ideas you have?
Well, Mike, I've learned through this whole process, this is my first novel. And it is, as you said, it's doing very, very well. I'm really fortunate that way. I've learned during this process that you can either write or you can market. And, that's the kind of world that we live in these days. So right now I'm in a marketing mode, just marketing this thing like crazy. So, but I get asked all the time, when's the sequel coming out? When's the audiobook coming out? When's the movie coming out? And all these things that I have to deal with. But I'm real fortunate, as I said, and people are ready for the sequel, and I have started on the sequel. This book actually is a totally standalone novel, but it's going to be part of a trilogy. So I have started on the sequel. I can't give you a time frame. I also have another gentleman that I'm working with on a nonfiction book, and I've got a lot of irons in the fire, as you can imagine. And also I'm working on the audiobook, the translations, and it's just been a wild ride, and it's just started.
And it sounds interesting to you. You talked about translations and everything else, and it sounds like you've met a number of people over the convention. And how many people have actually expressed interest or say wanting to pre-order your book, or just like share stories at the convention?
Oh, it's been unbelievable. I mean, we've gotten so much positive response out there. It's just been awesome from all over the country and indeed just all over the world. But no, I'm even in discussion with a movie producer. Ever since I started on the novel, from the time I was in the writers group stage, I've heard movie, and I can hear this movie. I can see this movie, playing with my head. So I really have no doubt at some point that it will be made into a movie. And that's just, I'm not a wide-eyed kid. I know it takes somebody with a heart and a vision for it, and a lot of money, because it won't be a low-budget film. But I'm getting all that and kind of dealing, balancing this all the time, and also, starting to work on the sequel and all these other things that got going on with the I'm my own publicist, and I'm dealing with this all myself, and I'm kind of learning this as I go along. It's quite an experience.
It sounds amazing, too. We'll talk about some of your inspirations and ideas in just a minute. You're listening to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download it and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, as well as Anchor FM, and watch the interview on the Mike Wagner Show YouTube channel and subscribe today. Also, take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with Kelly McCoy, the author of Rough Way to the Highway, published by Elm Hill. He is a trucker turned author whose book is getting a lot of attention. Talks about trucker turned pastor turned trucker about after his wife's murder. And, just getting into the book as well, too. And what gave you the thought of writing the book in the first place?
Well, Mike, writing is something I've had in my heart since I was a kid. I used to love to go to these big Barnes & Noble type bookstores and just go up and down the aisles, and I would pick books out at random and read them. And sometimes I'd be so awed by the prose, I would think, I could never be a writer myself. It's just way beyond my reach. And then I'd go to another aisle, pick up another book, and I'd think, man, this writing is just really bad. And, if somehow or another he managed to get that book up on the shelf, so I knew I could do it as well. But back to the rough background thing, guys from my neighborhood didn't go to college. They didn't write books or any of that. So when you have that mindset that you can't do it, then guess what? You're not going to. So I didn't. Mm-hmm. So, I hit the road, and trucking is an all-consuming occupation. You're just, you work until you drop basically every day, and that's kind of typical trucking. So it's kind of hard to, think about writing a book while you're doing all that. But it is something that I had, stored away in the back of my mind. And when you have a dream like that, it really doesn't die. It just gnaws at you. Mm-hmm. And you either do it or you never forget about it. You'll die. The dream will die with you, but you don't forget. So I never forgot. And so when I was working for a trucking company that went bankrupt, and I thought, well, you know what, this is a good time to pick up my writing and take it seriously. So I did, and went and joined a writers group, and that's where it got started, and the rest is history.
And of course, too, you also had the writing bug for quite some time now. Did you take any correspondence classes or attend any seminars to get into writing, or you just went ahead and just jumped in and had somebody look at it?
I just kind of jumped in. I mean, that's kind of the way I do everything in life. I just kind of jump in and do it. Haven't really been taught much. I'm just, self-taught pretty much everything. But I just, joined the writers group and got teamed up there. I did a little writing here and there, a little bit in newspapers and smaller publications. That nothing significant. Mm-hmm. But it's something I already had in my heart, so I did join the writers group. I got hooked up with a guy named John Floyd Mills at one of these writers groups, and he liked my writing style. And he was a writer, former writer with the old now defunct San Antonio Light newspaper. Uh-huh. And he started his own publishing company. It's just to help guys like himself navigate the whole sea out there of the publishing world, which he knew, everything from, A to Z about the publishing. So he liked my writing style, and he suggested he and I partner together and write a series of novels about a trucker out there. And so we started on, we didn't really start on it, but we kind of explored that. It turns out our writing styles were too radically different for us to do that. So he went on and he wrote a couple of novels of his own, and I kind of took this project and stumbled along with it and didn't really get anywhere. And what the final motivation that made me, pick this up and take it to the finish was that John died a couple of years ago.
Oh my God!
And I thought, boy, yeah, if he, if I don't do it now, then I may not have tomorrow, and none of us, that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So, but that was the final motivation for me to get up there and take it and see it through to completion.
That is amazing too. And who do you consider your favorite authors or favorite writers?
I get that question a lot. My mind went blank. I have some absolute favorite authors. Ernest Hemingway. I absolutely love Ernest Hemingway, even though he has a fascination with death.
Oh, yes.
His writing.
I've read that. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he does. But, I absolutely. And not only, I love his writing, but I like his whole attitude, And one of the things that Ernest Hemingway said that always stuck with me, he said that first drafts are all blank, and you can fill in that blank, and anything about Ernest Hemingway, you can imagine what he said. But that, and believe it or not, that was actually kind of encouraging to me because he was talking about his own writing. I've been in writers' groups with some really good writers, but when you go through the whole process, you realize what they first put out there is really pretty bad. Mm-hmm. No matter who you are. Mm-hmm. And so it's not, in the writing. So I would encourage any of your listeners out there. I have a lot of people that I've inspired to, take their own writings, their own books out of their dusty drawers and start them again because they get discouraged because it's pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And it's always bad. Mm-hmm. My writing was always bad when I first started, so, and it's not in the writing, it's in the rewriting. Mm-hmm. And it really, it's perseverance more than anything else. You have to just keep with it, and be able to take criticism, because you're going to get it one way or the other. You can take it during the process, or you can let the reader do it later, and they will be merciless. So that's how the process goes.
That is amazing. I think we're all inspired by it as well, too. My wife happens to be a writer as well, too, and, get awesome. Some good inspiration. Yes, we'll talk more about that off the air. But also, I was going to ask you as well, too, what are some of your favorite books that you have read, and what are some of the books, if you recall from memory, like you've read over at Barnes & Noble, what kind of stood out to you?
What kind of stood out at Barnes and Noble? I mean,
I was talking about the books. I mean,
the books that I read.
Yes.
It's just the books that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is going to sound. I don't mean it for it to sound pious or anything. It's not in any way that way. But I just recently had an interview, a written interview. It's for the American Christian fiction writers, which they're going to hold their convention in San Antonio next month, and I got that question written down, and I gave it a lot of thought. And you know who I came up with, and he's really is my favorite, is the Apostle Paul.
Nice.
And the Apostle Paul, wrote half of the New Testament. Mm-hmm. And I don't even call him St. Paul, the Apostle Paul, but just refer to him as Paul.
Correct, yeah, like the
and
Bible.
And then I can think of him as just a man, and so here he is, somebody that's been beaten nearly to death more than once, literally, one lash away from being killed. Because they gave you the 40 lashes minus one because they thought that the 40 would kill you.
Right.
So, and then he's sitting there in a prison, and so he wrote all these things. I know that he's under inspiration of God, but I can read that and I think, wow, and I think I have problems with writer's block. Mm-hmm. And my circumstances seem to be challenging. So he is, honest to goodness, the man that I admire the most as a writer.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I was going to get to the part about Barnes and Noble. What fascinates me about Barnes and Noble?
Well, it's just the huge bookstore. I mean, I can get lost in there all day long, and I hope those bookstores are around for a very long time. As you know, so many of them have closed. But I just love to I could spend days in a Barnes and Noble, that kind of store. And I just love, there's nothing like it to actually be able to go in there and physically pick up those books and thumb through them and read them and sit down, and look through all these books. So I encourage people to support those kind of stores as well. They can go to Barnes and Noble and buy my book, or they can go to any bookstore and buy it. It's available anywhere, literally.
And make sure you get yourself a coffee and a cookie as well too at their little cafe.
There you go. Yeah, spend some other money while you're there. So yeah, I really encourage people to do that. And the price is not that much different anyway. So support your local business there as well.
That is amazing, too. And, of course, I was going to ask about the most challenging. You pretty much gave that. What do you consider most memorable moment, either in writing or, say, in trucking?
Well, the most memorable moment that comes to mind in the trucking, when I was young and stupid. I'm writing a whole book about my young and stupid stories. It's not about the young and stupid stories per se, but about how the life lessons that they teach you, because life is a great teacher, Mike. Right? I mean, you don't have to go to school to learn these things if you pay attention. But I was probably about 6 months into my career back in California again. I was a little north of Los Angeles, going through the Grapevine Pass. And this is the way that it is in trucking, and still to this day in many places. I had that much experience, but I was the lead driver, and I had the more experience of the two of us. Mm-hmm. So here I was in charge of everything, and I was going to go through the Grapevine Pass, north of Los Angeles there, which is like a 8-lane freeway going through the mountains there, but a steep mountain pass, which, it's infamous for all the, wrecks and all these horror stories. So I was going to go through there, and so I stopped just as a precaution to be super safe. I stopped and had my brakes adjusted, my trailer brakes adjusted. And then I took off there, and, I got to the summit and back to the young and stupid things. There weren't any California Highway Patrol cars around, so I didn't stop at the brake check station because I just had them adjusted, right? Mm-hmm. So, I went down the other side and started using my trailer brakes to discover that I didn't have any trailer brakes at all.
Uh-huh.
And so I started applying my tractor brakes, and so the brakes started smoking more and more and more, and then they got red hot, and I'm nothing but a big old ball of smoke going down the highway at this point. And so when you go southbound, you get down towards L.A. or headed towards L.A., there's a sharp right turn that the freeway makes. Again, 4 lanes each direction. And I realized I was not going to make it around that curve without flipping over and killing I don't know how many people.
Oh, my
Again,
goodness.
here I'm at 21 years old. So I looked off to the side of the highway and decided I was going to take my truck over the side of the mountain road and kill all those people. And so I did the last thing that I could think to do, and I was standing on all my brakes. I popped my emergency brake, my parking brake. So if you know anything about the delay system and an air braking system, it takes just a seconds for that to hold. Well, that second or two sound like an eternity when you're going down a mountain like that. So I went over to the shoulder, and I was ready to go down the side of the mountain. And so then the brakes started taking hold.
Wow.
And it started slowing down, staying on every brake I had. Pulled over, finally got the truck stopped, thank God. Plopped my head on the steering wheel and just breathed a sigh of relief. And then right behind me there, my co-driver, who knew nothing about any of this, poked his head through the curtain there and said, "Hey, everything all right, Kelly?" "Oh yeah, I'm good. We're good. Just a little bit tired. Everything's cool." So I stopped there, and then another truck driver pulled behind me, and I didn't even know how to adjust the trailer brakes at the time, but it turned out that the mechanic who adjusted those brakes turned them out all the way in the wrong direction. And so I had no brakes, and so he showed me how to do that, and so we survived that, thank God, myself and my co-driver. That is the first Young and Stupid story in my book that is coming out. But you know what that taught me, Mike? Don't rely on somebody else. When it comes to when it comes to your life, and this book is about health and wellness and all that, but so you can't turn your life over to experts and expect them to just take care of it, because something like that could happen to you. An expert's just another fallible human being with a degree or something. So
I think I like how you put that as well too, and just a nice way of putting it, and I think that's great advice. And also, speaking of advice, I guess we hit upon the biggest influence. What is the best advice you can give to anybody when it comes to writing?
Well, the thing you have to do with the writing, you just have to sit down and write. And that's the most difficult thing for any of us to do who are writers, because writers, I don't care how experienced you are, there's a running joke about it. You block out all this time and you think, finally, thank God I have all this time to write. And then you sit down and you try to write. That's really the last thing you want to do. And then you go about trying to find ways to avoid writing. And the joke used to be, you take the sharpen pencils, you do everything, arrange everything, get everything set up just right. Now you've got the internet. Well, you think, now I've got to do some research. So then you start researching everything, and then it turns out you don't get anything done. Writing is just really difficult to be able to focus for that, and especially for a novel like I've written here. It's very creatively written, and so to just create a whole new world out of thin air like that, to write a book from beginning to end, to hold somebody's interest is a challenge, and it seems kind of overwhelming at times. But to answer your question, Mike, you have to just sit down and write and persevere, and don't quit. That's what it takes. I mean, most people who start books don't finish because they start running into these difficulties.
Right.
And then they end up their book ends up being stuck in a drawer somewhere, and they never finish. I hear these stories over and over and over again. And I've inspired many people to pick that pen up again and start writing again. And
I think that's great too. It's wonderful how you talk about it. And before we let you go, we know you're very busy, and it almost sounds like you're in a diner too, and still talking with people, and maybe you order a little apple pie and coffee for us. So what are your upcoming projects, your website, and how do people contact you, and where can they purchase a book?
Well, the book is literally available anywhere books are sold. That's the way I put it, Amazon or anywhere books are sold. It's available anywhere online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Kobo, and, anywhere. And so you can get it online anywhere throughout the world. And it's also beginning to become available at some physical bookstores. It is in some Barnes & Nobles. It's in Indigo in Canada, a number of their stores. And so, and you can look it up online. If you forget any of those places to go to, just, type in Rough Way to the Highway or Kelly Mack McCoy. You got to get the Mac in the middle. Kelly Mack McCoy, and you type in Kelly Mack McCoy, and it'll all come up. So you can get it anywhere.
Okay, that's great. We'll do that. And Kelly, just want to say thank you very much for your time. You've been fantastic. We know I got to hit the road sometime soon, but just want to say look forward to have you on again soon. And thanks for being with us. You've been fantastic. And please do us a favor and keep this up to date.
We'll do it. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. I appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And watch the interview on YouTube. Also, become a sponsor of the program and or donate today at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of The Mike Wagner Show.